an assignment. It doesn't produce progress. It doesn't open doors. And it certainly doesn't move the heart of God. What moves God is faith, and faith is expressed through obedience. While worry paralyzes, obedience mobilizes. Worry will keep you stuck in the same place, rehearsing the same fears, but obedience will lead you step by step into the promises God has prepared for you. Your job is not to figure everything out. It's to follow his lead. Obedience is the proof of trust. It says, God, even when I don't understand, I'll move when you say move. It's not about knowing all the details. It's about knowing the one who holds them. Worry demands a full blueprint before it's willing to act. Obedience moves at the sound of God's voice. God rarely gives the whole picture up front because he wants you to walk with him, not ahead of him. Worry wants control, but obedience surrenders control. It hands the pen back to the author of your story. You were never created to live in anxiety about the outcome. That's why Jesus said, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't yours, it's God's. Your role is to obey today. Obedience focuses on the next step, not the whole staircase. But worry keeps your eyes so far down the road that you miss what God is saying now. You lose today's strength trying to predict tomorrow's problems. Meanwhile, God is inviting you to trust him in the present moment because that's where his grace is. Worry is based on the lie that everything depends on you. It magnifies your limitations and minimizes God's power. But obedience is built on the truth that everything depends on him. It positions you under his covering, his provision, and his timing. When you obey, you're not walking blindly. You're walking covered. That's why the outcome doesn't need to be perfect for the process to be powerful. If God said it, your obedience is already a success. Obedience often won't make sense to your logic. God may ask you to give when you feel you have nothing, to step out when the path looks shaky, to forgive when you still feel the pain. But obedience isn't about comfort, it's about covenant. It's not about what feels safe, it's about what builds faith. Worry waits for safety before it acts. Obedience moves because it's anchored in the one who never fails. That's why the obedient are the ones who see miracles, because they move even when it doesn't make sense. Sometimes God gives instructions that seem too simple to solve such big problems. He told Naaman to dip in the Jordan River, not to find a doctor. He told the servants at the wedding in Cana to fill jars with water, not wine. He told Peter to cast his net again in the same place where he'd caught nothing. Why? Because obedience is not about the size of the act, but the size of your faith behind it. Worry debates and delays. Obedience simply does what God said. Worry is noise. It drowns out divine instruction. It fills your mind with what ifs and worst case scenarios until you're too distracted to hear God's whisper. But obedience thrives in quiet trust. It hears God's voice in the middle of the storm. It finds direction even when the path isn't fully lit. Worry talks you out of your assignment. Obedience leads you straight into it. If the enemy can keep you worried, he can keep you from moving. But once you choose obedience, you step into alignment with heaven. God never said to worry your way into breakthrough. He said to trust, believe, act, and walk by faith. Worry is fueled by fear of the unknown, but obedience is fueled by confidence in God's character. He's been faithful before, and he will be faithful again. That's why the enemy targets your obedience, because he knows your breakthrough is tied to it. He knows your peace is connected to it. He knows your next level is released through it. So he throws worry like a weapon to keep you inactive and insecure. Worry often disguises itself as wisdom. It sounds responsible, cautious, even strategic. But there's a difference between being careful and being paralyzed. Some people call it planning, but it's really just fear with a better name. God doesn't bless fear dressed as wisdom. He blesses obedience. Even when it looks risky, even when it costs you comfort, even when you're misunderstood, because obedience is rooted in relationship, not results. You obey because you trust who God is, not just what he's going to do. You can either obey God or entertain worry, but you can't do both. One will keep you moving, the other will keep you stuck. Obedience opens doors that worry keeps closed. It releases favor that anxiety locks down. It draws you closer to God's presence while worry pulls you further from his peace. Worry is not your assignment, never has been, never will be. You were created to trust, to walk, to listen, and to obey. Praise is not a reaction to what God has already done. It's a declaration of trust in what he's about to do. It's the sound of faith before the victory is visible. Praise shifts the atmosphere because it shifts your focus. When you choose to lift your hands, open your mouth, and bless the Lord in the middle of uncertainty, you're sending a message to heaven and to hell that your hope is anchored beyond what you see. Praise isn't just celebration, it's warfare. And it often precedes the breakthrough, not follows it. When you praise God before the answer shows up, you're telling him, I don't need proof to trust you. I just need your presence. That's powerful faith. It's the kind of faith that made walls fall in Jericho before a single stone was touched. The people didn't fight first, they shouted first. Their shout wasn't a response to a victory, it was the signal that they believed one was coming. God moves in environments where he is exalted, and nothing invites him in like authentic, pre-breakthrough praise. There's something sacred about praising in the dark when life doesn't make sense, when doors are closed, when prayers seem unanswered, and you still say, God, you're worthy. That praise carries weight. It breaks chains, silences lies, and disarms the enemy. Paul and Silas didn't wait for the prison doors to open before they sang. They praised in the prison, and that praise became the key that opened what man could not. They didn't sing to escape. They sang because even in chains, God was still good. Praise before the breakthrough reveals the condition of your heart. It exposes whether your worship is situational or steadfast. Anyone can praise when the job comes through, when the healing happens, when the relationship is restored. But faithful praise says, even if I don't see it yet, I know who my God is. That kind of praise is raw, honest, and heaven moving. It's not based on feelings, it's built on truth. And it is that truth that sets you free before your circumstances ever change. When you praise ahead of the breakthrough, you're not ignoring reality, you're declaring a higher one. You're saying that no matter what the doctor's report says, no matter what your bank account looks like, no matter how dry the season feels, God is still seated on the throne. Praise puts your problems in their proper place under the authority of a sovereign God. It reminds you that you're not defeated, you're being developed. You're not forgotten, you're being formed. And God is still working behind the scenes. Praise is an act of surrender. It tells God, I may not understand the process, but I trust your promise. It releases the need to control and invites heaven to intervene. When you praise before the breakthrough, you release a sound that's greater than your situation. That sound pierces through discouragement, cuts through confusion, and builds up your inner strength. It's a spiritual reset that puts your faith back in alignment and reminds your soul who's really in control. There's a pattern all throughout Scripture. Breakthrough often follows a sound, a cry, a shout, a song. The Israelites shouted and the walls fell. Jehoshaphat's army sang and the enemy defeated themselves. Hannah prayed and then praised before she ever held her child. The sound of praise isn't just noise, it's prophetic. It announces what's coming before it's seen. It tells your soul to hold on a little longer. It reminds the enemy that your joy isn't circumstantial, it's covenant-based. When you're in a waiting season, praise becomes your posture. It's how you keep your spirit lifted when everything around you feels heavy. It's how you push through the fog of doubt and disappointment. You might have tears in your eyes, questions in your heart, and battles in your mind. But when you praise, you're choosing to speak faith anyway. And in that moment, heaven leans in because praise like that touches the heart of God more than polished words or perfect circumstances ever could. Praise doesn't just change your spirit, it invites God to change your situation. He inhabits the praises of his people, which means he shows up in the middle of it, not after it's over, not once you've won, but right there in the fire, in the fight, in the frustration. That's why praise is so powerful. It welcomes the presence of the only one who can actually bring the breakthrough. And when God shows up, everything changes, not always instantly, but undeniably. Sometimes the breakthrough isn't a change in the external, it's a shift in the internal. Your circumstances may not have changed yet, but your spirit has. Your mind is renewed, your peace is restored, your faith is reignited. That's what praise does. It lifts you above the noise, above the chaos, and gives you the strength to keep going, because deep down you know the breakthrough is coming, and until it does, your praise is proof that you're already victorious. Faith isn't just believing in what you can't see. It's moving like it's already real. It's walking as if the door is already open, even when it still looks shut in the natural. That kind of faith confuses the enemy and pleases God. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. When you move like it's already done, you're aligning your actions with the promise instead of the problem. You're saying, God, I trust you so much, I'm going to prepare the table before the feast even arrives. Most people wait to see evidence before they shift their behavior, but true faith flips that equation. It says, I'm not waiting on proof, I'm moving on the promise. That's why Noah built an ark before it rained. That's why Abraham started walking without knowing the destination. That's why Joshua marched around Jericho in silence before the walls ever moved. When you move like it's already done, you're not responding to what is, you're responding to what God said. Sometimes the boldest thing you can do is take a step that makes no sense to others. You're applying for jobs like you're already hired. You're budgeting like the debt is already canceled. You're preparing the nursery like the baby is already on the way. You're speaking life over your marriage like it's already healed. That's not delusion, that's decision. You're choosing to walk in agreement with heaven rather than the discouragement of earth. And heaven always honors faith in motion. So you don't need everything around you to shift before you start shifting within. When you move like it's already done, you begin to change your mindset, your language, and your posture. You start speaking differently, carrying yourself differently, showing up differently, not because you're pretending, but because you're prophesying. Your steps become a living declaration that you believe God is not only able, but willing and ready to do exactly what he promised. Faith without works is dead, which means belief without movement is incomplete. There's a blessing on the other side of your motion. Some doors won't open until you start walking. Some miracles won't manifest until you act like they're already in your possession. That's why your movement matters. It's not about striving, it's about surrendering through action. When God sees you move based on his word, he moves on your behalf based on his will. Waiting doesn't mean standing still. It means preparing in the spirit what hasn't yet shown up in the natural. God doesn't give seed to those who sit. He gives seed to the sower. Movement makes room for more. When you move like it's already done, you're showing heaven you're ready for increase. You're not just dreaming, you're doing. And God always breathes on obedience that's backed by faith. Even if it's messy, uncertain, or uncomfortable, the enemy wants you to sit in fear, to hesitate, to second guess every step. But bold faith pushes past doubt. It says, even if I don't feel ready, I'm going to act like it's mine. You may not have all the resources, the connections, or the clarity, but when you move in faith, God brings what's missing. Your steps activate divine support. Your movement opens up unexpected favor. And your consistency creates momentum that even the enemy can't stop. Sometimes you have to walk in circles like the Israelites around Jericho, not knowing when the breakthrough will come, but still moving, still showing up, still praising, still preparing, because movement in faith is never wasted. God sees every step you take, even when others don't. And he multiplies your obedience in ways you can't even measure. What looks small to you becomes supernatural in his hands. It's easy to move when you see progress, but faith is proven when you move without visible evidence. That's when God knows he has your trust, not just your talent. That's when you shift from spectator to participant in the promise. You're no longer just waiting on a miracle. You're walking like it's already yours. And even if the manifestation hasn't come yet, your mindset has already crossed over. You can't wait for confirmation to act when you've already been given a command. God said, it move. Don't pace around the promise, participate in it. Don't overthink your way out of what God already spoke. If you want to see it, start walking like it's already done. Speak like it's already yours. Build like it's already happening. Because the steps of faith you take today are preparing the place where your miracle will meet you tomorrow